Hey everybody, it's Roger with Roger's Reviews, and I'm just going to talk about tree service and also equipment and financing. And I was thinking the other day, I saw a local tree service, and they had like three or four huge grapple trucks. They had another lift with uh, another truck pulling a huge trailer. And then they had another truck with a huge trailer pulling a huge stump grinder, and they probably had 10 or 15 guys just at one job site. And when it gets slow, what they tend to do is take everybody they can, their whole crew, or three or four crews, and put them on one job site. And I was just thinking, man, it's like these people have so much overhead and they have so many employees and everybody wants to work and they have so many bills and financing. Is this really good for the end consumer? Not really. Because if you think about it, if you have a company that is in debt and have all these payments and all these employees, when they go to a job and they look at your trees, they're not necessarily looking out for your best interests. All they want to do is basically cut that tree down and shove it in a truck and leave as quick as possible and go to the next job. So I'm thinking to myself, it's actually better if you have a smaller tree service that has less equipment. Like, we used to have loader trucks and, all this equipment. And basically what I did, I sold all the equipment that wasn't making us any money and basically got lean and mean. So we just have when we need a special piece of equipment, we either rent it out or we hire someone that has that piece of equipment. I had a loader truck and it sat most of the time, and I was still paying insurance. I was still paying for repairs. I was still paying for the plates. And when something sits, it often, it gets leaks, stuff rots out, hoses rot out. So when you do use it, it has a tendency to break down a little more often. So the best thing to do is sell that piece of equipment like I did. And then what you can do is just call that person and set up something where, hey, if I sell this piece of equipment, I still want access to it, and I'll pay you X amount to basically, have that service. So basically, you still have access to that piece of equipment and everything it does, and then you don't have to pay an operator. Because say you have a grapple truck, say you buy it used, it's $40,000 or $50,000, and then you have to pay insurance. It's 200, 250, $300 for insurance. Then you have to pay plates. It's like 3, 4, 500 a year. Then you have to pay maintenance cost. And then you have to pay storage. So how much money are you spending for that truck just sitting there when it's not being used? Sometimes it's a lot cheaper to sell that piece of equipment, but still have access to it. So, but needless to say, sometimes it's always not the best idea to have, every single piece of equipment known to man, especially if you have to have license and insurance, and you have to have an operator for each piece of equipment that's sitting there. Even though it's not operating, even though you're not using it every day, you still have to pay all this overhead. So if you have to pay all this overhead and you have all this equipment, and then you have the biggest equipment you can find, just like this other company, they have each piece of equipment requires a huge equipment trailer and at least a 1-ton dually or bigger to pull it. So basically, you have, for every piece of equipment, you have to have a minimum of a 1-ton dually, probably diesel, which is the minimum you're going to pay is $10,000 to $20,000 just for the truck. Then you're going to have a big equipment trailer, which is at least $5,000 to $10,000 just to pull the piece of equipment. So if you have a big stump grinder and you buy it brand new, you're talking, anywhere from $50,000 to $150,000 just that one piece of equipment. And then you have to have, if it's big enough, you're going to have a CDL driver just to pull it if it's over 26,000 pounds. So you're going to have to pay that guy at least $150 to $200 per day just to pull that piece of equipment. So you multiply that by 3 or 4 trucks. That's just for the equipment. That's not including your loader truck, your bucket truck, and everything else. So you're going to have a lot of overhead and a lot of pressure to make those payments, pay all that overhead, and pay your employees. And once you hire those people, you can't lay them off. You got to keep them busy. So even if you're not working, you have them come in and do something. So basically, you have all that overhead and financing. So what do you think is going to happen when you go to a customer's house and they want a tree service? You're not really going to look at, well, what's the best, if I was this customer, if I owned this house and I had these trees, what would be in my best interest? A lot of times they'll be, trimming or saving the tree or not cutting it down at all, maybe just a light trim. But if you're not going to make as much money doing that, if you have a ton of overhead and a ton of pressure, you're going to look out for what's best for you. You're going to be like, well, we can make more money if we cut this tree down quickly, get it on the ground and haul it off and go to the next person. So just be careful who you hire and be careful how you run your business, because if you have a lot of pressure on you and you have to make X amount of money, sometimes that determines, how you bid the job. So a lot of times it's better just to have a low overhead. And like when I go to do a bid, it's easier for me to look at the customer and look at the tree and find out what's best for them. Like I always put myself in the customer's position. I'm like, listen, if I lived here, especially like in Orange Park or Jacksonville, people usually buy houses and they live in subdivisions that have big trees, big, beautiful trees. And they're basically, if you cut that tree down, you grind that stump out and you don't replace it. And it's, a lot of these trees take, 20, 30, 40, 50 years to basically get that big. So in less than half a day, you're going to cut that tree down and haul it off. You're not going to be able to replace that tree for 50 years, 40 years, 30 years. So is it really in your best interest and that customer's best interest to cut a tree down that doesn't need to be taken down? Just because you need to make a equipment payment and you need to pay all your guys and pay all this overhead, should that really be the determining factor to take a tree down or not? So anyway, it's just a thought I thought you guys would be interested in. So when all these guys, your competitors, have all this equipment and all this overhead and all these employees, a lot of times you're like, wow, this is a huge company, it's like, I can't wait to get that big. Not necessarily. So I think it's kind of intimidating for guys, especially starting out. They see all these huge companies with all these huge trucks. Trust me, if you're the owner of that company, you have a lot of pressure on you to make all those payments and pay all those people. And the salesman that you hire, he's just paid on commission. And he's going to go out and try to sell, and he might not have the customer's best interest or the tree's best interest in mind. So don't worry, stay small, and eventually people will see, when you talk to them, that you have their best interest in mind and the tree's best interest in mind. It's not always about profit. It's about, treating the customer right and doing what's best for the customer and educating the customer. It's not always about removing these trees that don't need to be removed. So anyway, if you like this video, please crush the like button and subscribe. And I'll bring you more insights of running a tree service that I've been doing for over 20 years. And through my life experience and through the tree service experience, I've found out that it's not always the best thing to have a huge company with the biggest and baddest equipment and huge payments and a huge payroll. Sometimes that reflects on not being the best at, being on the customer side. Sometimes if you're smaller and more efficient, you can make better decisions that's best for the customer and best for the trees in your neighborhood. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Until then, have a great day, and don't always buy the biggest, baddest equipment. Sometimes you got to stay small and keep it all. Have a great day.